All right, let's talk about kinetic traps. It's this wild idea that explains why everything, and I mean everything, from the tiniest molecules to entire nations, has this uncanny ability to get completely and utterly stuck.
You know that feeling, right? When you're in a rut, you're in a situation that's, well, it's stable, maybe it's even kind of comfortable, but deep down you know it's not the best place you could be. Well, what if I told you that very human feeling is actually a fundamental principle of how the universe works?
And this idea, it plays out at the most microscopic levels you can imagine. Picture a tiny RNA molecule. It has one job: fold into a very specific, perfect shape. But sometimes, on its way there, it gets tangled up, folding into a shape that's, well, it's fine, but it's not right. And then it just gets stuck there.
Now, let's zoom all the way out. Think about two nations locked in this tense standoff. They keep building more and more weapons, not because it's making anyone safer, but because they're caught in this reactive cycle that they just can't seem to break. It's the same problem just playing out on a massive, global scale.
So to really wrap our heads around this, we gotta start small. We're diving into the world of nanoscale biology, where this whole idea first came from.
So what is a kinetic trap really? Here's the key thing to get. It's not the worst-case scenario. Not at all. It's a state that's stable, a configuration that sort of works. The problem is, it's not the best state. Think of it like you're rolling down a hill with lots of valleys. A kinetic trap is like rolling into a small, comfy valley that's easy to get into, but getting out requires a huge climb to find the deepest, most stable valley at the very bottom.
And for this, RNA is the poster child. It's this biological workhorse inside our cells that absolutely has to fold into a precise 3D shape to do its job.
So imagine that folding process like a ball rolling down a really bumpy hill. Scientists call this the energy landscape. The perfect, ideal shape is waiting at the bottom of the deepest valley. That's called its ground state. But as that RNA chain folds up, it can super easily slip into one of these smaller, shallower valleys along the way. That's a local minimum. That's the kinetic trap. And to escape it, it would need this massive jolt of energy to get back up and over the hill. So most of the time, it doesn't. It just stays stuck, misfolded, and pretty much useless.
And hey, this isn't just some quirky RNA problem. The very same thing happens when viruses try to build themselves.
See, when a virus is putting together its protective outer shell, the protein pieces can sometimes snap together too fast or in the wrong order. And what you end up with are these funky, incomplete virus particles. They're kinetically trapped. They're stable enough that they don't just fall apart, but they're not the final infectious virus. They actually have to slowly, painstakingly rearrange and correct themselves over time to get to that final dangerous form. Okay, so if even tiny molecules get stuck in these traps, is there any hope? Can you actually get them out? Let's take a look at how scientists are finding some really clever ways to break the cycle.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If climbing out of the trap takes way too much energy, maybe the trick isn't to escape it, maybe it's to avoid falling into it in the first place.
And that is exactly what researchers at Georgia Tech figured out. As Isaac Gallego puts it, sometimes you don't fight the game, you just change the rules.
So how'd they do it? Well, usually when scientists build things with DNA, they do it in water. But this team switched to a totally different, water-free solvent. And by doing that, they literally changed the energy landscape. This new environment basically smoothed out all those pesky, shallow valleys, making it way harder for the DNA to get trapped in the wrong shape. And the result was incredible. They could build these complex DNA structures that would normally just fail, all because they changed the environment to avoid the trap. Okay, so hold on to that idea of changing the environment to avoid a trap. We're about to make a huge leap here, from the nanoscale world of DNA all the way to the high-stakes world of international politics.
And when you put them side by side, the parallels are they're stunning. For a molecule, the trap is about structure. For nations, it's strategic instability. The barrier for the molecule is a mountain of energy. For nations, it's a mountain of political risk. But the result? It's exactly the same. A massive waste of resources on a cycle that isn't leading to the best possible outcome.
The logic of this trap is brutally simple. The Union of Concerned Scientists just calls it a truism. Country A builds a new missile defense system. So country B gets nervous and builds a better missile to beat that system, which means country A has to respond, and you see where this is going. Each step makes perfect sense on its own, but the whole system gets locked in this escalating cycle. It's a classic kinetic trap.
And listen, this isn't just some academic theory. World leaders talk about this trap explicitly. Here's China's ambassador to the UN warning that a single decision on missile defense isn't just one move. It can trigger a whole new round of the arms race, pulling everyone deeper into the trap.
And here's an even more direct warning. The fear is that messing with the agreements that are already in place, the guardrails designed to prevent this exact thing, could cause the entire process of disarmament to just stop. The system would fall even deeper into its trap, a stable but incredibly dangerous state of high tension that would be almost impossible to escape.
So, what do you get when you put misfolded proteins right next to nuclear missiles? You get a surprisingly powerful new way of seeing the world, a new mental model.
What this reveals is a universal pattern. The underlying logic doesn't care if you're talking about atoms or armies. The principle of getting stuck in a state that's stable but not optimal holds true across the board.
At the end of the day, kinetic traps are the enemy of the best. They are the good enough that gets in the way of great. A misfolded protein is stable enough, sure, but it can't do its job right. An arms race maintains a fragile balance, I guess, but it is so far from the best way to achieve global peace.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Now that you have this idea of a kinetic trap in your toolkit, where else do you see it? Think about personal habits you can't break or economic policies we keep using. What parts of our world are just stuck in good enough, trapped in a stable rut, and unable to make that big energetic leap to something truly better?